Yeah, my dad should be joining us here shortly. He'll be joining us on from a different location. So I think it's cool that your professor found us and recommended us to you.
I'm very much passionate about ecologically sound agriculture, regenerative agriculture. I have a book right here. It's called Sacred Cow. Yeah. So I'm using the references, the info in this for some of my essays. And we do farming ourselves at a much smaller scale. We have not even 1 acre, but we keep chickens and turkeys and ducks last year, but we're trying to get more into it.
That's awesome. And where do you live? So are you in Ohio?
I'm in Michigan. I live in Michigan. I go to school in Miami University, which is in Oxford, Ohio, but it's all remote. Yeah.
You good?
Oh, I thought he was on the phone with someone. Yeah,
it looks like maybe he is.
Okay.
1 second, he'll be back on.
Yeah.
Like he's finishing up something. Okay. Now he's got to figure out how to get off mute.
Okay. No problem.
Here I am. Okay.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dave. Yeah, thank you guys for doing this interview. I'm a graduate biology student at Miami University. I'm pursuing a master's and MA in conservation biology. So my undergrad was in computer science, but I didn't want to live the life of inside a cubicle, and I've always been into wildlife, so pursuing this degree made much more sense, and that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years, and I've been creating videos. I'm an independent filmmaker and an independent writer right now, so this is a book that I got self-published. So it's called Iconic Animals of the North, a fact-filled exploration of northern wildlife. So yeah, ecology is my main obsession, and wildlife. I read two of your articles because they were recommended to me by my professor. One of them was from the Colorado Sun by Tracy Ross. I read this entire one, and one more which I can't find right now, but I read both of them, and I particularly really like how just your whole attitude toward what you prioritize on your ranch, the ethos of Aldo Leopold and the other names that you mentioned. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I got questions lined up, but if you would could you introduce yourself and what you do at Eagle Rock Ranch to my viewers?
Sure. Aaron, do you want to start?
Absolutely. No, I can start. So we spoke a little bit before, but yeah, thanks again for reaching out to us. We're excited to be contacted, and it's fun to be discovered through these great articles that featured our ranch. So my name is Erin Michalski, and I am the daughter to Dave and Jean, who I help out at Eagle Rock Ranch. I help out both with the cattle, with the horses, and then we also have a retail store here in Fairplay, Colorado, where we sell our ranch raised beef out of. So that's where I'm sitting right now. I do a little bit of everything, I guess, at the ranch, and happy to be a part of it. And it's been exciting to be kind of a part of this ecology journey that's Dad's got us started on over the past year.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So, Dot, my name's obviously Dave Gottenborg. I was thinking Jeannie would be here by now. She had some other things to work on this morning, but I didn't want to hold off on our
no
visit.
Yeah, no problem
for that. But you will note that. We're fortunate. This whole thing was kind of triggered, I think, by us the ranch being awarded the 2023 Colorado Cattlemen Association Commercial Producer of the Year, which kind of came as a surprise in terms of the honor, which we're humbled by and very pleased with, obviously. But then, people start calling and learning more about us, and that's what's happened, I guess, with the Colorado Sun. There's another article in the Modern Farmer, it's called. There's one recently came out in Forbes magazine, which you may have seen, and then another one I think is supposed to come out in Working Ranch magazine this summer, I think. So stay tuned for that one. But basically, we haven't really been doing anything different here recent years. It's just that maybe people are starting to pay attention or take note of it and so forth. And we're happy with that. We're we're happy to kind of share the philosophy. It's not that something everybody has to do or would be interested in doing, I suppose, but we find it kind of drives our operation here and so forth, and it's very fulfilling, and I think we're discharging our responsibility to the land and the wildlife.
Yeah, working with nature instead of against it, just working in unison with it. I found the article, the other one that I read, it was actually modernfarmer.com article by Bridget Chervell. Meet the ranchers working to sustain the world's largest elk population. So yeah, that's the other one I read. Right off the bat, I just want to ask, are you guys experiencing any difficulties at all with the reintroduction of gray wolves in Colorado, or does that not affect you guys?
Well, it hasn't directly affected us yet. We expect that they'll spread and come over into this valley at some point, maybe as soon as next year. But so far, we haven't experienced it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because I'm always trying to promote wolf-human coexistence, but I know all the negatives that can occur when an apex predator is introduced, so I'm just interested in that aspect of it. You guys have a farm store like in your ranch, which is where Aaron is sitting right now?
Yeah, it's actually not at the ranch. It's about 30 miles from the ranch, but we do have a direct-to-consumer retail store here. It's in a little town called Fairplay, Colorado.
Okay.
We sell all of our beef out of the store, so we sell it direct-to-consumer here at the Mercantile, and then we also have an online presence where we sell it nationwide. So.
Nationwide, all states.
Yep. Okay. We've even been shipping to Hawaii lately. So.
Oh wow,
I have not been to Alaska, but I'm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that, and you beat out like a lot of farmers with Hawaii because most farmers, regenerative farmers that I've interviewed, they got all 48 states except for Alaska and Hawaii.
Good.
When did Eagle Rock Ranch, I forgot where, I know it was one of the articles, but when did you guys acquire it and start working on it? What year was that?
Yeah, well, the ranch itself was founded in 1868, right after the end of the Civil War, and at the tail end of sort of the gold mining activity up here. It's been run continuously as a cow-calf and a haying operation ever since, through some different owners. We acquired it in 2012, Sadat, and have been running it along those lines ever since. 2012,
okay. And I heard like you guys like started farming it in a different way than the previous owners, kind of inviting nature, inviting the elk. The previous owners weren't really inviting elk herds on the property.
That would be kind of an understatement.
Okay.
That would be true. Yeah, it's a tough dynamic, and we understand it. They're in the pastures right now in the overnight, and in the early morning I get up, I see them out there. At night they move down in. There's you can fight it, Sadat, as previous owners did, or you can learn to sort of manage it. And it's sort of like, water coming in. They're going to find a way. So the ranch here is in a designated severe elk winter range on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife map. We're at an intersection of several big draws and valleys and things where elk migrate into in the winter. And so our fences get tore up. Everybody's fences in this valley get tore up pretty good with elk in the winter.
Okay.
And that's something that was part of our initial exploration with the Property Environment Research Center out of Bozeman. We had heard that they were working with a rancher or two up in Montana on these elk occupancy agreements that would help with fencing, and so we were interested in that because all I do, Aaron and people that work here, we fix fence in the spring and summer every year, and then next year we do it all over again. And so the thought was there's got to be a better way. So we're talking with them. We're working on a deal right now that would establish sort of a migration corridor and pastures that we don't graze with cattle, make available to the elk, and then adjusting our fences so it makes it easier for elk to migrate through. And that's involving these laydown fences and so forth. So, the PERC people, the Property Environmental Research Center, they call themselves PERC. The PERC people actually find money to help ranchers convert fencing and so forth to facilitate this migration. And I think it's win-win for everybody. I mean, I've cut elk out of wire fences, and that's a dangerous thing. I don't recommend it necessarily. Colorado Parks and Wildlife does not recommend it because it's dangerous. But I can't just stand by and watch an elk. They'll die of exhaustion and blood loss eventually, and then the coyotes will come in and they'll eat them while they're still alive, really, and it's not a pleasant thing. So if we can eliminate that by virtue of what kind of fencing we put in, I think that's a win-win. My fences are in better shape, the elk are in better shape, and we save a lot of time having to fix fences that way. So we're working hard on converting that. We've done a lot. We've got a little bit more to do, and then my neighbors are interested. So we're sort of spreading that gospel a little bit in terms of, hey, this is a way maybe we can do the elk a favor and do ourselves a favor, not having to do all this fence work every year.
You said they don't recommend you to cut fences. Is that what you said?
Well, when the elk are caught up in the fence, okay? So the elk jump these barbed wire fences, and there's herds of them. Yeah. Doing that all at the same time, and sooner or later, one of the elk hits the top wire. Another elk is following. They misjudge it. They put a leg through the two wires, and they get all twisted up, and they can't get out. And they're stuck. Yeah.
For viewers that might not be familiar with the sheer size of an elk, could you talk about that a little bit? Like the size of a bull elk, a full-grown elk, just on average is, what would you say, like 700 plus pounds?
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000.
1,000?
1,200.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're big animals.
Yeah.
Big bulls are big animals.
I've seen them. I've seen elk in elk farms and stuff, and also in Yellowstone. And I think I should mention I've been to Colorado in the summer of 2021. I did a road trip across the whole country. I hit like 12 states, a bunch of national parks, including Rocky Mountain National Park. So I stayed in Denver and just like Aurora and Boulder. I visited those areas and went to Rocky Mountain National Park. So I've seen elk in the wild from a distance, and then closer up at elk farms and taxidermied elk. I've seen them at outdoor shops, and they're just a majestic animal and just awe-inspiring, the size of it, because it's not like a white-tailed deer. It's like a giant version of that. I can see how an animal of that size can impact the landscape. Just migrating, because you said your farm is on migration routes of elk herds. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very beneficial that the way you farm it, you allow them to continue their migration routes instead of like disturbing that route, because rotational grazing is something I'm studying right now. Rotational grazing under the Alan Savory's methodology is trying to mimic in nature how herds of herbivores migrate. So I'm sure they got a beneficial impact on the ecology of your landscape if you allow them to migrate like that.
I think they do. First of all, as I go back and say, you're not really stopping them. They're coming through. It's just how how they're doing it, basically. And I guess you could put up bigger, taller fences and keep them out entirely, but then you're really isolating your land from the surrounding ecosystem and so forth, and that's not good. So the way elk move, they'll go up into the high country in the summer where they're left alone and there's plenty of grass and water. But during the winter, it's all locked up in snow and there's no real water up there and so forth. So there's deep snow. So they come down to the valley. And right now, where are we? Late May, early June is when they calve. So they'll be, they're still around here, and it's still a lot of snow up high in the high country all around us. There's big peaks, and which is still locked up in snow. And so we have the snow's gone from our pastures right now, hay meadows. We're irrigating. There's green grass coming up, and they love the green grass.
Yeah.
And plus, they're looking for a place to calve. So pretty soon, Memorial Day, big holiday, people start coming into this valley, and the national forest all around us, and they camp. They ride their motorized vehicles, dirt bikes, ATVs. It's hard for elk. It's very difficult for elk to find a quiet place to calve, and this is their time of year when they calve. So we open our hay meadow gates. They're in there eating. They're looking for peace and quiet. They don't find it on outside of our boundaries because that's all national forest, very busy with people. And so a lot of them calve in our pastures, and that's okay with us. We feel sorry that they don't have a better place to go, but we can make it as good here as we can. So we've also, we time our cattle calving, so they calve at the same time as the elk, and it works out better for us. Most ranchers calve early. So that because in February, March, April, we calve in May, June. And we think that matches up well with what the elk are doing and what our environment allows us to do.
And I also read in one of the articles that you guys purchased this property. It's 3,000 acres. And obviously that's not cheap. So you guys had a business before this, like I think it was an oil company or something, or unless I'm mistaken, one of the articles talked about it. So what were you guys doing before being farmers?
Yeah, it was small, very small, essentially a mom and pop production company, and we did that for Jeannie and I, and we did that for 20 years or so before. We always wanted to own a ranch and run cattle, and so we decided we'd better get that going before we got too old. So sold everything and bought this place, and now we're running cattle.
That sounds like the dream. That's certainly my dream. I don't know which state or which region in the world I'd like to do that in, but I definitely want to buy land and start a regenerative farming operation. That's like a long-term goal of mine. You guys are also looking to double down on ecotourism, right? That's something you're thinking about?
Yeah. Aaron, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Feature was on mute. So we have offered to date just some general calving tours. It's kind of how it started, just getting people exposed to the ranch. I have customers that come in the door and want to know how the cattle are raised and what their living conditions look like. So we started offering tours at the ranch for people to come see the ranch and see the calves bouncing around the pasture in the spring. And that was very well received. So we continue to do those. We host school groups and Girl Scouts and the like for different tours of the ranch. And then most recently, after the completion of the study, the biological study that was done about the ranch ecology, we decided to start offering some kind of biodiversity-based tours that we could showcase the different elements of the ranch to people that were interested, whether it's from birding to different moss or grass species or the like. So we just launched those this year.
Okay.
And as I mentioned previously before Dad jumped on, we're just now getting out of snow over here for the most part. So
Mhm.
I think those will hopefully take off this summer. It's not something people probably want to go do in the dead of winter out here in South Park. As Dad can mention, some of the species that were found were only also found in Antarctica, which is ironic, but that kind of gives you an idea of the climate we're dealing with. So
Yeah.
hopefully those ecological tours will start to ramp up this summer, but they are a new offering for us.
Okay, gotcha. And on the topic of the quality of your beef, it's some of the best beef in the world because of the life of the cow. So are they grass fed and grass finished, or are they like grain finished, or what? Yeah, out of that.
That's a good question. So obviously it's a very confusing world with the different terms out there on how cattle are fed and finished and raised, but our cattle are all pasture raised. So they're grass fed, just like all cattle are.
Yeah.
And then they do have a 150-day grain finish on them at their last 150 days. So at that same time, they still have free range access to grass in the hay form, but they do have a grain finish on them, which provides them with the marbling and kind of the steakhouse taste that the average American consumer likes.
Yeah.
But then I always tell our consumers too that they're finished on like a commodity, like a straight commodity based ration. So it's not they're not eating animal byproducts or antibiotics or anything that could kind of alter their state. It's truly just like a steamed corn and distiller's grain finish.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
pasture raised, grass fed, grain finished.
Yeah, because there's also levels to the quality of the grain feed, right? Because it's not
Correct.
just all one pool of grain feed. There's like different qualities to it.
Yep.
And do you guys have a restaurant at Eagle Rock Ranch where people can sit and eat meat from the ranch? Not yet. Okay.
That's not something.
Yeah.
That's here. We just have the store, so all of the beef is sold frozen, actually. So it's all 21-day dry aged, and then it's flash frozen upon butchering. So it's also frozen. However, speaking of restaurants, we do have a couple restaurant partnerships. We have 2 restaurants over in Summit County, so over in Breckenridge, which is the big ski area that's close to us, where they're their sole supplier of ground beef. And then we have a little hamburger stand right next to her, I say next to, it's 15 miles from the ranch. There's a little hamburger stand that sells our beef as well. So we have some restaurant partners, but we don't have any restaurant that's unique to us.
Yeah, that's interesting how the American consumer palate is geared for like the marbling and the more of the softer meat. I think it's softer, right, than the grass-fed and grass-finished meat.
Yeah. It is more tender, and I think that's a result of the dry aging process as well. So our beef kind of hangs in a cooler for 21 days, which the different enzymes in the beef start to break down some of the collagen, and I think those enzymes are more prevalent when there's a higher fat content, which would be due to the grain finish. So yeah, it does result in a more tender steak for sure.
Yeah, because I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talks about that to numerous guests, the difference between grass-fed and finished and grain-fed, and how most American consumers gravitate toward the grain-fed in terms of how it tastes, but it's like worse for their health, whereas the grass-fed is better for their health, but it's like a little bit tougher. And so yeah, he talks about that, and he talks about how we should lean more toward the grass finished, even if it doesn't completely match what we're wanting it to taste like. But that is what meat is. The cattle their digestive systems are designed for grass, not grain. Like my palate is designed for grass fed because I order from farms nearby, like where I live, and I try to source as best I can. I'll order online from farmers. Now I'm going to order from you guys because now I know that you ship to every state. Yeah.
I think just to follow up on that too, it's kind of a function of the environment that your operation is in. So I've got friends that run operations down in Brazil and so forth, where they get, 600-700 inches of rain a year. It's unbelievable the amount of rain they get down there. They grow grass like you can't believe. And so everything, really, South America is known for grass finished beef. That's what they finish on.
Uh-huh.
Up here, it would take multiple seasons of grass forage for them to become in a finished state, and sometimes our winters up here, well, always our winters up here are pretty brutal. So we typically will winter them a year out on corn stalks out in Nebraska. Our calves, weaned calves, bring them back here for another year in the high country on grass. And so they don't have to go through another winter up here or elsewhere. We put them into the finish program for a few months, and then they're ready for processing. And it works for our environment up here. You know, I've read studies too that say that in terms of energy consumption, water consumption, actually grain finished cattle are less disruptive on the environment than a grass finished product. And typically a grass finished cow will need at least 2 or 3 years on that diet to become finished. Buffalo is the same way, 3 years or more of a grass diet for a buffalo, and Wagyu is even longer than that in terms of a finish. So all these things consume water and resources and so forth, and we've found that the grain finish, the last few months of a grain finish, shortens that whole process and actually saves on the water and the grass and other forages that would be otherwise consumed by another type of finish and so forth. They can do that in South America because they get all that grass grows faster and they can eat it basically.
Yeah.
Here it's not so much.
In the stage where they're being grain finished, how much weight do they gain on average? How much size do they attain?
So when they're on their grain finish ration, they're gaining somewhere between, with the way that we do it, somewhere between 2 and 3 pounds a day. So
Okay.
there's different approaches. You can push them more than that. You can push them less than that. But that's kind of the sweet spot that we found that it's kind of the best case scenario for a good tasting finish and a humanely treated animal, opposed to just pushing them too hard too fast. So it's about, I would say on average for our cattle, it's about 2.5 pounds a day.
Wow.
Yeah, roughly about 80 pounds a month, somewhere about that.
And that lasts for how long, you said? That grain finished period was how long?
It's about 3 to 4 months.
3-4 months, okay. You guys are working directly on the land every day as well, right? Like farmer tasks, not just office work. Even though you guys are the owners, you're doing farm jobs as well, mainly.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time for office work, do we, Dad? That's why we're always kind of. That's why it took me forever to get back to your email. So I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I assumed it was because you were out working or something.
Yeah.
So do you guys have like employees though at all?
We have a couple of part-time employees that help at the store, and then we have just one part-time person that helps at the ranch. But besides that, it's my mom and dad and myself.
Oh wow, okay. And are you guys looking to get employees and expand that, or are you just good with maintaining it yourselves?
That's always a tough proposition, Sadat. We have more help in the summer. We have student interns and that sort of thing that come help us, and that's a big benefit because that's kind of our busy time is summer. In the winter, especially when the cattle are shipped to warmer climate, we don't really have a lot as much going on here. So then it's kind of tough to keep a full-time person or more around when there's not that much for them to do. So, we've reduced the size of our herd, quite frankly, so Jeannie and I and Aaron and can, with some part-time help, can handle it. And as you said, my wife and I and Aaron, we do everything.
Wow.
Everything. We're calving right now. So as soon as I'm done here with this podcast, I'll go out and we'll tag some of our new calves that came in last night. I've got to run down the road to. We've got some leased ground down the road that I've got to walk with the owner down there, and we'll see about moving some of the yearlings down there for the summer. And we'll be shipping those later this week, and then moving the pears out the back of our property to another property. We'll do that on horseback, and so just juggling rotational grazing, moving pears around, and calving and yearlings, and
Yeah. It sounds similar to another farmer that I'm working with in Michigan. Her farm is called Serendipity Farms. Serendipity Farms in Wolverine, Michigan, and it's just her and her husband. They got no other workers, and they have 80 acres and a lot of poultry, cattle. So, but they're working every minute of the day, but they enjoy that kind of work and they love their lifestyle. I'm sure you guys enjoy what your lifestyle is right now as well. Just being out, working with your hands, being outside. And you said a lot of tasks require to be on horseback.
some.
Okay.
Some, when we can get horseback, we try and do that. But a lot of it is just cleaning and fixing fence and making sure the water's running where it needs to be and not where it's not supposed to be, and just fixing machinery, and I mean you name it. I'm outside every day.
I would love to be one of the summer interns. During a summer, I'm free, so. Yeah, I'll apply. Okay. I'll apply to that once Is there like an application process? Okay. Yeah, for sure. This summer, I won't. Well, I might be, but this summer I'm going to Kenya with my university, the South Rift Valley of Kenya, where we're gonna be with the Maasai tribe. And one topic the one that I chose was cattle agriculture, because there's a lot of pastoralists in Kenya. So we're gonna be working with them because they're also implementing rotational grazing and various forms of agriculture where the ecology is maintained and the grass isn't overgrazed, because that they're maintaining that with a very deadly set of native species that they have to deal with, lions, hyenas, and so I'm very excited for that trip into Kenya. But definitely, I would like to be an intern there at your guys' ranch at Eagle Rock Ranch, because I'm looking for those opportunities all the time. But as soon as I find a pocket of time in the summer where I can actually be an intern, I'll definitely pursue that.
Great.
Polyface Farms. Are you familiar with Polyface?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I am.
They have a program like that, but I think it's like very long. I actually have a podcast interview with Joel Salatin in 8 days. I'm surprised he even replied to my email. But yeah, I have to ask him if there's like shorter opportunities, because I would love to do internships at various regenerative farms. I had a question about the pools that you guys made. They were referred to as drinkers by Bridget Shrevell in the article. So yeah, that's you guys did that to increase biodiversity, right? As well as having water sources at higher elevations.
Yeah, so Dad put in a series of so we call them drinkers, like you call them the pools with the big tractor tire with the cement bottom in it. So they're gravity-fed drinkers that provide a steady stream of well water to the wildlife and to our livestock. They kind of start at the top of one of our, I want to say mountains, but I call it more of a hill, and then kind of they're gravity fed down in a series of 5 different drinkers. So those do provide water, obviously, to our cattle primarily, but then when our cattle aren't up there, obviously the elk and other wildlife are welcome to come drink from them as well. So those were we've had them in the past, but the addition of 3 other new ones, or 5 new ones altogether, were a project from last year.
And that was...
Dad?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron. I mean, I had to mute it because there was a call coming in, and
no
I
problem.
let it go. But so we put in a series of drinkers, and you did a fine job, Aaron. They are powered by a solar well, the solar panel pumps water up to the high tank, and at that point, it's all gravity fed down to the other tanks. And we put these up on the side of the hill to get the cattle out of the bottom. And so they're up on the hill now. And also the pastures of the valley that they're in, had sort of a temporary seasonal flow of water in it. So by late summer, that those ponds in the valley itself would dry up, and then we couldn't really use it for pasture unless we were trucking water. So this pretty much gives a 3-season usage of that area. Plus, it gets them off the bottom up on the hills, so we get better better coverage on the forage consumption.
Oh, okay. So it's a little bit of rotational grazing going on there by moving them there. Okay.
Moving them. Mm-hmm.
And
water.
You said you pump the water up to the high point and then it's gravity fed down. So what is like the initial source of the water? Is it like a underground well? Or
okay. It is. It's a well with a solar pump down there.
Okay.
That's wired to a solar panel with a switch on it that we can turn on and off. Wow. And it pumps it through a smaller diameter hose pipe up to it's like, you can push water through a smaller diameter pipe than you can a large one. And it goes up to the top tank. That fills up. There's an overflow. It goes down to the next one. That fills up. Then there's an overflow automatic that goes to the next one. And they're kind of daisy-chained that way.
That's very cool because you're basically kind of managing that ecosystem by adding more water sources. Because that's basically what beavers do when they dam up a river or a creek and block that water, and the water accumulates, turns into a little pond or a lake, and that's why beavers are like increasing biodiversity when they do that. So I feel like humans are capable of fostering like biodiversity in certain ways as well, like the way you guys are with the drinkers. What kind of species come outside of just the cattle? Is there native wildlife that you've seen increase because of the drinkers?
Well, the elk are able to use it. We have deer, we have antelope. We've got everything back there. We've got bears. I mean, not every day, but we see bear tracks. We see bears on occasion back there.
Black bears.
On property, black bears. Okay. Yeah, we've got all kinds of wildlife, and that doesn't even include the birds and so forth too. Every tank has a critter ramp in there, so it's a wire mesh screen that goes to the bottom and is attached to the top of the tank. So if something falls in, like a bird or a gopher or whatever, rather than them just paddling around until they drown, they can't get out, there's a ramp that they can climb up and get out of the tank and so forth. So they're wildlife friendly.
Wow. And you guys installed you guys thought of this yourselves, or was this like a blueprint that you found and implemented?
Well, we see other people. I've done it before when we were running out on the national forest, using natural springs. Never done it with a well and a solar panel before, but we did it there. We did 5 last year. We got another 4 coming in the other direction this year. So we'll be able to go both directions off of that top tank. And that'll help with another couple pastures in terms of the water there as well.
Do you guys have poultry at Eagle Rock Ranch? Chickens or anything like that? None. Okay.
No, those would be coyote magnets.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
They would.
Yeah.
So we don't. But, I wanted to make a point that Aaron touched on, and you did too, Sadat, on these eco tours and so forth too. I'm convinced that we need to find other sources of income for ranching families. When you go and look at, I'd say 90% of ranching families, maybe higher, somebody has to have a town job. Some spouse or family member has to take a job in town to earn money to help support the ranch. And sometimes they do it for the insurance reasons, sometimes they do it for income, but there's always somebody driving out of the ranch every day to go into town to work and bring back money to help support the ranch. I feel very strongly that ranches need to be self-supporting and have other means of income besides cattle and hay.
Yeah.
We produce a lot of hay that's for sale, but we do fishing. We lease our river. You can see behind me. We lease that for fishing rights.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful river.
We have a hunting program. Now the nature tours and so forth. So we can talk about. People are really interested. There's a disconnect that you'll find, Sadat, and maybe you've already discovered it, between the urban people and rural people.
Oh yeah, I see it.
People want to know more about agriculture. They don't know anything. They don't have a relative in the business, so they're fascinated when they come and they go. Aaron or myself or Jeannie, somebody will take them on a tour of the ranch, see the new calves, explain why they're calving in May and June and not February and March. Look at the drinkers, discuss the rotational, look at the ecology, look at the plants. This biotic survey that we did over the last couple of years, we contracted with the Colorado Natural Heritage Program out of Colorado State University. They came with their team of scientists and did a complete inventory of all the flora and fauna, basically plant life and the animal life here on the ranch. Found many endangered, threatened species here, stuff that's only occurs here on the ranch, and maybe one or two places other than here. Our grassy slope sedge, for example, is a regionally endemic species, which means that it only occurs here in this region and no place else in the world. We probably have the biggest occurrence of that here on this property. So now we have to come up with we can identify it, we can show it to people, we can discuss how we manage it from a grazing standpoint, and how we can foster these things. Our bryophytes, which is essentially moss, we're just starting to get those things identified. We've have samples now of rare species of lichen down at the University of Colorado Herbarium. Indexed under Eagle Rock Ranch, and these are things that will sort of be in a database. But I think people want to see it. They want to talk about it. They want to learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's huge upside for carbon storage in bryophytes, mosses, peat mosses, and things. It's a huge carbon bank or carbon sink, basically. So. These are things that I think point the way to the future of ranching and range management in this country. I think we've only scratched the surface of what we can do in terms of carbon storage and that sort of thing that will ultimately pay off for ranchers, because the ag thing by itself is a pretty tough business, as you know.
That sounds incredible. All the wildlife species that have been found and are being found on your land. It sounds like almost like with the ecotourism, it sounds like a Jurassic Park situation where there's like a lot of stuff, a lot of natural stuff to see there. Almost like a national park, the way you described it.
Well, what is the future of zoos in this country, for example, right? Why isn't there more of an African type of experience when it comes to game management and viewing, right? I don't see why everything. I think zoos are under pressure too to open up and get animals out of cages and put them into places in their natural environment. I don't know what the future of zoos are in this country, but at some point this could be an elk preserve, basically, I think, and deer and antelope and all those kinds of animals. So I think it's critical for the future of agriculture in this country, particularly this state. I think that we develop other ways of bringing in income and also exposing urban people to the agricultural way of life, basically.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it heads in that direction. Sorry, I got a couple questions here lined up. Just had another thought, but I lost the thought.
Yeah. While you think of that, let me add too and Jeannie just came in, so maybe she'll join us here for the few minutes we have left. But in terms of conservation, guys like Wes Jackson and Wendell Berry and even Aldo Leopold talked about conservation being sort of a state of harmony with the land, and how do you measure your success or non-success as a conservationist? And part of it is you measure by nature, essentially. So you get an idea of what the place was like before you got here, or before this was settled, basically. And you measure what you're doing now versus what was there before. So that was part of this whole biotic survey, was to at least give us a baseline of what types of flora and fauna are present here and so forth. Jump in here.
Okay.
Jeannie just joined me, so she'll
Hello.
come in.
Hi. Still winter here.
Oh yeah. Is this snow? It's not snowing now, is it?
No, but I wouldn't put it past it in about the next half hour.
Okay.
Cold rain right now?
It's not raining. Well,
like
yeah,
it's
now
raining.
it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cold. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we had a hailstorm just yesterday.
I'm Jeannie, Dave's wife, Aaron's mother.
Okay, that's what I was assuming. I just didn't want to guess wrongly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice to meet you. I'm Sadat. I'm a graduate biology student at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. It's remote.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's remote. I live in Michigan, and I'm very interested in regenerative agriculture, ecology, and Eagle Rock Ranch, because you guys do all that.
Well, good for you. It's nice to meet you.
Yep, nice meeting you. We were just talking about just like all the ecology that is being found on Eagle Rock Ranch, like the lichens and the mosses, and the university students helping out with that, which made me think about, you said that you guys are trying to always ask what was the land like before you started farming it. So on that topic, there used to be like millions of elk, right? In America, I think it was like tens of millions of elk. So if you're expecting the elk herds to increase in population as we head into the future?
No, I think I've been told by the Colorado Parks and Wildlife people that elk have seen their heyday here. So elk herds are going to be under increasing pressure from development, and obviously the reintroduction of wolves here is going to put a lot of stress on elk herds in this state. So I don't expect them to get any bigger than what they are right now. They're going to be under pressure. So all we're trying to do is, I think, give them a little bit of slack, help them to the extent we can. But there's more development in this valley all the time, all across the state. There's 6 million people here right now, with 1 million more at any given time that aren't necessarily residents but are visitors. So we're talking 7 million people, and another couple million more expected by the year 2050. Wow. Most people move to Colorado, Sadat, for recreation, and they want to come up in the mountains and recreate. And now it's not just summer, but it's spring, summer, fall, and winter too, in the backcountry and everything else. That puts incredible amount of pressure on elk, which really need quiet and solitude, isolation, really, in the winter to carry those babies, because any kind of stress is they miscarry. It's spontaneous abortions and things like that.
Even in
decimate.
The fall, their breed up program, they've studied that and said that the numbers are down there because of pressure, recreational pressure. They have no place to breed.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, even in Colorado, because when I picture Colorado in my head, I think of so many elk and like millions of elk, but human pressure is taking its toll on Colorado elk population as well.
For sure.
Yes, it is. It is the largest elk herd, I think, in the country is here in Colorado. But if you want to draw an analogy to wolves or not, it's up to the individual really. But elk herds have gone down in Montana and Idaho. It's coincidental anyway with the introduction of wolves up there. Wisconsin deer population is not good. And I think Colorado's going to follow. And that's not just me. That's people with Colorado Parks and Wildlife that I talk to. Everybody predicts that with the combination of development, you got recreation, you've got predators now that you can't do anything about. Between all of that, you're going to see downward pressure on the elk numbers. So all we're trying to do here is help to the extent we can. It's not a solution to the problem, but it's just a partial solution to a tiny bit of the problem.
In the ideal scenario for like a complete ecosystem, you'd want healthy elk populations and then some tertiary species like apex predators at the top in a balanced way, where they're kind of like moving the herds around, allowing them to not overgraze. But the problem is there's not even enough elk to do that, to introduce apex predators right now.
Well, I hate to go down that road right now. It's a very sensitive topic, and there's a lot of emotion on both sides of the issue. But let's just say, looking at it from a historical standpoint, Sadat, elk used to be across this entire country. Maybe the exception of Florida is what I read, but from New England to California, to the south, to the north, the plains, the mountains, everything. Ohio, Michigan, lots of it. Now it's all gone now. What elk are left here in Colorado? You get the occasional one straying out onto the eastern plains, but 95% of them are up here in the high country. Why? Because there's solitude up here. And so what I read is that when apex predators are introduced, they drive them out of the forests down onto the valleys where they can see predators coming.
Oh, makes sense.
That opens them up to hunters, and that's where all the recreation, the development, subdivisions, they're really, you can't really introduce them back into Iowa or places like that where they used to be. So they really don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
And those options are going to get fewer and fewer. So I hate to be pessimistic. I sound like it. It's just important, I think, on large scale landscape managers like we are to do what they can to facilitate their migration, their reproduction, their overall health. And that's what Aldo Leopold wrote that book, Sand County Almanac. He targeted, he really aimed at private landowners. That message of land ethic, land conservation. He says over and over, not just in that book, but in all of his other writings, how important the role that private landowners play in wildlife management of all species, ducks, geese, deer, elk, beavers, what have you. The government lands right now are under incredible pressure, and they were back in those days too. He talked about recreationalists, the pressure from recreationalists in his book, Sand County Almanac. He talked about it. Mm-hmm. This was 100 years ago.
Wow.
And so those pressures have not gone away. Those pressures have only gone up. And so it's incumbent upon landowners like us and you and other like-minded landowners to do what they can to sort of coexist with the wildlife that's just looking for a place to live, basically.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I haven't finished reading Sand County Almanac, but I have the book. I'm reading it right now. So I probably didn't get to the part where you talked about all the importance of private landowners, but I do agree with it. And what do you think is the best way to educate private landowners? Just spread it in every which way possible, and because at the end of the day, if they own that property, they could do what they want to it. And I've met I've met my fair share of landowners that really don't care about nature at all. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's like, how do you even tackle that issue? It's like politics at this point. Yeah.
Well, Aldo Leopold had the exact same question 100 years ago.
Yeah.
He asked that exact question precisely.
Gotcha.
How do we do this? And education is a key component of it. I guess what you're studying and your professor and your classmates in that department, that wasn't there 100 years ago. Aldo Leopold founded really the first wildlife management department in the country at the University of Wisconsin, probably in the 1920s, probably 100 years ago. And so it's grown. That's not the only department anymore. They've got them just about I shouldn't say every university, but many of them, right? So that part's going well, but it's hard. So Sadat, this disconnect between urban consumers basically and rural producers is something that has to be bridged, and Erin's doing that with her calving tours, her nature tours, our eco tours. We study the geology around here. We understand our place in this environment. There's an art to ranching and farming. Every place is unique. Every environment is a little different. It's higher, lower, wetter, drier. Science or farming, as you found out, is not a formula that can be applied. It's a art that has to be designed to the area where you're at. So we've modified what we do to kind of best fit our environment here. But we've got to bridge that gap. We've got to get more people up here to learn about what we do. You got to get people to your place so you can educate them about what you do. And that's about all we can do, right? And your podcasts probably play a great role in that. And
I hope so. I'm trying to gain as much viewership on these videos as I can. It's a slow process, but I'm steadily working on it. But that's the way to do it. I agree. Little steps at a time. And but I think the trend is heading toward, or at least shifting toward, a positive direction, because I'm seeing like higher demand and higher awareness for regeneratively farmed meats like now than even just 3-4 years ago. Like I see them on my Instagram account and just at the store on the aisles, like there's way more options for like regenerative meats and eggs. So I hope it's shifting toward the right direction, but it will be like a long process for like a big change. Certainly not something one person can do. It's like a big collaborative effort. Bridging that gap between the urban people and the rural people, that's difficult, because I know some people that they're such indoor people and they're so disconnected that I feel like they forget that meat comes from living creatures. Sometimes it's hard to even, like, where do you begin with that? In our backyard right now, we don't have much land. We don't even have 1 acre, but I try to do rotational grazing with poultry. Like we have just 3 chicks right now in a brooder situation, so I'm doing it at a very micro scale. Last summer I kept turkeys, ducks, and chickens, so I had like a lot more work last summer than this summer, where I only have 3 chicks and they're like 10 days old right now. But I have like this circular fenced in area where I just let it regrow naturally, where my turkeys used to be in, because that ground had all that turkey manure and duck manure when I didn't keep them in at the same time, but all that manure just like accumulated in the soil, and then I did nothing to it. It was just like a muddy mess. But in the span of like a year and a couple months, it has regrown to like a full-blown forest just from the seeds that fell in it, like through the wind. It's amazing, because that was just like purely natural, and now I have like this mini ecosystem that I'm working with, and I let my chicks run around in there on the hotter days, because it's like the same temperature outside as there is in their brooder. So I just let them like find bugs and stuff, and I try to get good shots of them with my camera. But that stuff fascinates me. Even at a small scale, it fascinates me, and I just want to share it in the best way possible with the population, trying to get as many views as possible, because I just want to share it, because it's some of the things I see happening in nature are just so beautiful and difficult to document in a way where it hits you the same way as when you saw it with your actual eyes. But yeah, I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, good for you. People have said, I think it's Wendell Berry or Wes Jackson, one of those guys, and they say, what can people do to sort of reconnect with nature and if they live in the city? And one of them, the best way really, is plant a garden. And if you can't plant a garden, plant a flower or something in a pot.
Yeah.
And it's just that process of growing something with sunlight. I mean, there's garden therapy stuff going on right now where psychologists say that growing a garden really helps people with their mental health and everything else. So there's just something about it that triggers something in people.
It's positive.
Yeah, it is positive.
It's positive.
Yeah.
There's so much negativity
in the world
right now that I think that's why people are drawn to it.
Yeah. So plant a flower, plant a garden,
Definitely.
get some chicks, and all of a sudden you start.
You have eggs.
Yeah, there's eggs, broilers.
Yeah, and that's like a whole nother side to it, the mental health aspect of just being there, being in nature. So that's like another additional benefit of regenerative farming that, the mental health aspect that we can dive into for even longer. But I just have a couple more questions. Do you guys have a processor on your farm, like a meat processor on your farm, or do you send out your cattle at a different location to be processed?
Yeah, so we no, they're not processed on the farm. So all of our beef that's sold out of the store has to be processed in a USDA facility. So obviously that comes with quite a few requirements, and that's a bigger task than a little ranch like us can take on. So we use four main processors at this point. We kind of went through that exercise during COVID when we realized it was really important to diversify our processors when there's kind of panic for dates or processor has a fire or whatever. So I use 4 different ones that I kind of rotate between, and they're all within about 2 hours from the ranch. So
okay,
super close, but we have a couple that are on the closer side.
Okay, gotcha. Because I'm also working with a farm, you might know of it, White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia. Yeah, that's a big one. And they somehow found a way to have their processor on their farm, which I thought was really cool because they're in control of everything in terms of the finished product. And I forgot what Will Harris's answer was as to how he was able to achieve that, but I just thought of it now.
They're smaller, like USDA approved and inspected kind of mobile processing facilities that people can endeavor in, but it's not necessarily a business we're looking to get in right now. But you bring up a good point, kind of having that control.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important that we work closely with our processors. So the good news is the processors that we do work with are completely transparent. I've actually been able to process our cattle alongside them before, and that's something that's really important to us. So it's pretty commendable to have that kind of control from start to finish.
Because I keep
horizon.
What was Will Harris's answer to that question?
He said, see, I have to look back at it, but I think it was just like the system was set in place like long ago, and because he inherited the farm. But I can get back to you on. I can email you his answer, what it exactly was, because I can't actually remember right now. I recorded footage at his farm. That's when he told me while I was in the passenger seat and he was driving, and he was saying a lot of stuff, so it must have I probably don't remember exactly what he said.
Yeah, I was just curious because we've looked into that. It takes a certain number of cattle that are timed to finish at the optimum weight on an ongoing basis to sort of justify that. And then they generate, they go through quite a bit of water in the process that wouldn't probably be recycled up here. And at most places don't have the ability to recycle that. So that gets discharged somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then there's a fair amount of waste, the offals and so forth, that unless there's a specific process to put those to, there's a fair amount of that sort of byproduct that needs to be dealt with somehow, some way. So there's probably a fair amount of environmental issues. Everybody talks about having processing facilities on their premises, but they don't talk about the water usage, water disposal. Where does that go into the ecosystem, rivers, waterways? I don't know. And then the offals. There's a lot of
stuff needs to be managed.
Yeah.
When you say offal, is liver and heart considered offal as well? Okay.
I believe so. I think it depends on the processor, but
okay.
It does. Yeah, but there's intestine. I mean, I'm referring to intestines and blood and all of that somehow has to be dealt with, and it's not, it's easier kind of. I respect those that have figured out a way to do it.
Yeah. I'm sure Will Harris would give you everything that's helped him because, in the regenerative farming community, it's like there's no real competition in the sense of other industries. Like we're always kind of looking out for each other. Because I know Will Harris has figured out a way to really use every part of the cow. In terms of every other farmer I talk to, he utilizes every part of the cow more than any other farmer I've met. Even to the point where like the hide, he will make like bracelets out of it like this. This isn't from White Oak Pastures, but I have one from White Oak Pastures. He's trying to find ways to like make bracelets and purses, and that's like a whole nother industry he's jumping into. And they have like a leather shop. They're expanding it. And in terms of the offal, I remember there's a video on their YouTube channel where he takes you into the processing plant and he shows every stage, every step of the process. And in there, I'm sure they talk about what's done with the offal. I think he composts some of it. I think he sells the organs. He sells liver and heart and everything that can be sold. And do you guys also sell liver and heart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We use some of that ourselves too.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm into.
That I'd point out is in the past probably 2 years, it's been really hard to keep both liver and heart in stock. I think is interesting.
Oh, like people are buying it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The carnivore movement and making like their own ancestral blends with the ground beef and incorporating the liver and the heart into it. So
the demand for that has gone up then. Okay. Yeah, I think that's in large part due to influencers like Paul Saladino. I don't know if you know Paul Saladino, and Liver King.
Liver.
Yeah, despite everything that went on with him, I feel like he helped consumers try to seek out organs, like regardless of all the drama. Like he got people into consuming organs, which is actually a good thing, eating every part of the animal. I have liver and heart always in my freezer. I don't eat it too much because it's so nutrient dense, you could get nutrient toxicity from it. So I eat it like once a week. But I love it. It's like, it makes me feel great. It heals my body after like hard workouts. It's just like this magical, natural food that has been ignored in American culture. Yeah. Sorry if I'm taking up too much time. I just have two.
No.
Okay. All right. I just got two more questions.
Go ahead.
Predator control. Do you guys use dogs for that? And if so, what breed?
No.
No dogs.
Well, we have a herding dog.
Okay.
Helps us move and gather, but I wouldn't call predator control.
Okay.
No. Maybe groundhogs or something.
Yeah, he just likes to move cattle.
Okay, gotcha.
Scott, you have to, if you work with dogs that way, they're supposed to live outside year round.
Yeah.
It's so cold up here.
Oh, yeah.
In the winter, I don't know if I personally could do that, when it's 40 below and those dogs are curled up by a rock out in the field. So I've looked at it, talked to the Forest Service about it, but in order for them to be qualified working dogs, they can't have a life with the family.
Gotcha. Yeah. So your dog is more of a family member than like a worker. It makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he likes that. He gathers cattle. Okay. He helps us move cattle. But he has no role in predator or anything like that.
Okay, gotcha. What breed is it? Like a border collie or?
No, it's an Australian Kelpie.
Oh, okay. Nice. I'm always
And
looking into dog breeds because I love like learning about the different dog breeds, and I love to hang out with dogs. So Australian
Yeah.
Kelpie, you said?
Kelpie, Kelpie.
Okay, I'll look into that.
The nice thing about that breed versus like a border collie or a heeler is that they don't bite cattle
Okay.
moving them. It's done through eye intimidation.
Ooh, wow.
So I don't think I would want to have a border collie or well, I know I wouldn't moving my cattle because I don't like that bite aspect.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Wow. One of the farmers I'm working with to create the short documentary on regenerative farming that I'm working on, I'm working with 3 farmers right now. One of them is in Serendipity Farms. She's the owner of Serendipity Farms, and she's in Michigan, and the northernmost part of the Lower Peninsula. So not the UP, but she's a short drive from the Upper Peninsula, which is very wild. It's like, it almost seems like you're in Alaska when you're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Yeah, so I love going up there. The nature there is just extremely wild, and she has to deal with wolves and black bears those are the biggest things that she has to deal with, and for that reason she has 3 dogs that are huge. One of them's an Anatolian Shepherd, and the other 2 are Great Pyrenees, and they're just massive dogs. They're like polar bears, the Pyrenees, and it's just cool to see how domestic animals work with humans and work with the ecosystem, and the whole system is just, I love to immerse myself there because I was at her farm for a couple days with my camera, so my elbows in the dirt, recording the dogs, recording the ducks and the poultry, and they're such smart animals, those Anatolian Shepherds and Pyrenees. At first they were wary of me, like on the first day I was there, but then when the owner let them know that I was not a threat, they completely changed, and I was just rolling around with them, and like it was like heaven on earth. But when they turn it on, they really turn into like a security animal. It's amazing to see that switch.
Yeah.
And I just promote using dogs to prevent predation on livestock instead of shooting predators. Like if a coyote, I guess you have to shoot coyotes when it gets too bad. They're taking too much of their chickens and stuff, but I would rather avoid shooting anything by having big intimidating dogs around where the predators don't even try to take the chickens and anything else. So that's that's just the form of predator control that I think is more in line with regenerative agriculture than shooting and poisoning and all this stuff. The last question I had was, you mentioned hunting on your at Eagle Rock Ranch. Do you guys invite people to hunt elk onto your property, or do you hunt elk yourself?
I'm not a hunter. I've got I'm a beef producer. I've got a freezer full of beef. So, but we do participate with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife in their landowner preference program, where we get a limited number of elk tags. We believe in conservation as implemented and designed by Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So if they think the elk herd can withstand and sustain hunting to a certain degree, we're not going to argue that point. We give them migration routes through here in winter, forage, place to spend the winter, but in the fall during the rut and so forth, when it's hunting season, sometimes we'll get somewhere between 4 and 7 or 8 hunting tags, and we can apply for elk, antelope, and deer.
Okay.
And people that are avid hunters that do it responsibly, that come up, most of them come help here at the ranch. This is one way to kind of pay them back and let them hunt. Some of them are successful, some of them are not.
Gotcha.
But it's really just the experience of hunting as opposed to the harvesting of meat.
I really think that the people that we give our tags to, like Dave said, they help us out here, but they're really people that need to fulfill those tags to fill their freezer for their family. It's not sport hunting to them. It's a necessity.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's actually a beautiful system then. Because I'm just getting into hunting. I've always fished. I've eaten some of the fish I've caught, but I've never really hunted with a firearm or anything until this year. I've just done some small game hunting, and this fall I'm planning on going on a whitetail deer hunt with my friend who's been doing it, just because I want to experience what it's like to connect with where my food comes from in that way.
Right.
Because however I can avoid buying the plastic wrapped factory farmed meat, I'm gonna try that out. So just to know what goes into putting meat on the table, because there's a lot that goes into it, and hunting is another way that I want to experience that. Just getting proficient with my firearm and like practicing it to make sure I get the humane shot. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. That's the stage I'm at.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very important to me. I don't, because there's different types of hunters. I'm definitely the type of hunter that will pass up on an animal if I don't feel that it's not a perfect shot.
Mm-hmm.
But
Good.
there's fish ladders on your farm. I read that in one of the articles. Yeah, the fish ladders in Taryell Creek. What are those, and how are they helping out with the biodiversity?
Well, the fish ladders are just structures. Really, they're concrete rings that we place in the river on the way up the rapids, so they can navigate and get upstream.
Mm-hmm.
And they
During
spawn.
spawning.
Yeah, during spawning, where they return to where they were hatched. And basically, it just facilitates deer, or fish movement up and down the river. It improves their, it's for the genetics and for the habitat and everything else. So we're the only ones that do it.
That's awesome. So you're helping out with the fish migration as well as the elk migration.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah. How did you learn about fish ladders? Is that something you created, or?
Yeah, I've seen some. I spent a year trying to call CPW, their fish expert, try and get some guidance on that, and didn't get anywhere. And I remember out of Leopold saying you don't need to be a PhD or so-called expert to help wildlife. So I finally just put these in myself, and they're working just fine.
That's amazing. And you guys do fishing on the property, fly fishing?
We lease it for fly fishing, so that improves that aspect too.
Okay.
Lease.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And which species of trout are there?
Well, we have rainbow, some cutthroat, brookies, brown.
There you go.
Okay.
Cut boats.
Yeah, cut bows. Yeah.
We got all those except for the cutthroat and the cut bows, but we got rainbow and brook.
That's kind of a hybrid, and then the cutthroats are real pretty.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to do some fly fishing. Just haven't had time recently. Been working on creating this documentary and all this writing assignments. I want to just talk about the Farm Bill. It's stalled in Congress until the end of September, and it's a heated debate in the House and Senate over crucial funding for conservation agriculture. Do you know anything about that?
I mean, it's important to the industry, the ag industry, but we really don't participate in these government programs.
Okay.
We're involved a little bit right now with a Colorado Department of Ag issue with soil conservation, but it's not a big part of our operation.
Okay, gotcha. And I guess that's the end of my questions, but obviously there's a lot I would like to learn more of at Eagle Rock Ranch, because the way you described it, it's just like this natural paradise for a lot of native species in Colorado, as well as livestock. So I definitely want to visit. And
great.
And one of the summers when I'm more free, I would love to apply to be like an intern there, just because I'm trying to learn as much as I can about regenerative agriculture. Any assignments that require direct connection with like the livestock and the ecosystem, I will gladly do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you're welcome to come out, visit, follow Aaron's blog. Your readers should follow Aaron's blog, Eagle Rock Ranch Co. I think it is, Aaron, on Instagram, right?
Blog's not as active, but the social media accounts are. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's Instagram, and then you'll learn all about the ranch and Eagle Rock Beef, I think, and Jeannie's Eagle Rock Gigi on the Instagram. So we post pictures, and Aaron does a lot. And so follow us, and we really appreciate your time, Sadat, and your interest in the operation, and look forward to seeing your product and come out and visit sometime.
Oh yeah, we'll do. The short documentary should be released by the end of probably this fall, and if I end up using any snippet of this conversation, I will email you guys to let you know if you feel that you were represented correctly. But the documentary is about regenerative animal agriculture. It's a short documentary, and I plan to submit it to film festivals as soon as I line those up and read up on their regulations and all that. But once it's wrapped up, I'll email you guys if you guys want to watch your part or the whole thing, and let me know if you're okay with how I represented you guys and all that. Yeah.
Yep.
All
Okay.
right.
That
Yep.
Real good. All right.
Great talking to you. Great meeting, guys.
Likewise.
Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
You too.